The Leesburg Police Department is committed to creating a safe environment for our citizens, especially our children.
We'll call the City Commission meeting Monday, August the 12th, 2024. It is 5:31 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. We're going to have an invocation and a pledge tonight. When we rise for the invocation, I'm going to ask everybody if you would please just take a few moments before I do the invocation to remember Master Deputy Bradley Link, one of our brave sheriff's deputies that was ambushed on August the 3rd, and keep him in your prayers, if you would. So please, everyone, rise for the invocation. Heavenly Father, we ask that you watch over this group tonight, that you bring us good decision-making, and that we go forward and make good decisions for the city of Leesburg. We do this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight we have a proclamation regarding the Leesburg Lightning FCSL Championship. Whereas the Leesburg Lightning, led by head coach Rich Billings, assistant coach Rich Billings Sr., and pitching coach Ryan Dees, captured the 5th Florida Collegiate Summer League, that's the FCSL Championship, on July 28th, 2024 by defeating the DeLand Suns and making the Lightning the second team in league history to win back-to-back titles. And whereas the Leesburg Lightning finished the regular season in first place in the FCSL with a record of 20-11, and whereas pitcher Tyler Donay sported the league's best ERA at 1.52 in 29 2/3 innings pitched, with 5 earned runs, 30 strikeouts, and a WHIP of 0.94. And center field Michael Fury led the league with a batting average of .406 and had 3 home runs and a .638 slugging percentage and a 1.192 OPS. And whereas Coach Rich Billings, the Lightning's head coach for 10 seasons, is the winningest coach in FCSL history and was named to the 2024 FCSL Coach of the Year, his 3rd time earning the honor. And whereas since joining the FCSL in 2007, the Leesburg Lightning have an overall record of .424 and wins with 293 losses, have made the playoffs all 18 seasons with 11 championship appearances, and have won the championship 5 times, 2007, 2009, 2021, 2023, and 2024. And whereas the Lightning's home stadium is Leesburg's historic Pat Thomas Stadium, Buddy Lowe Field, where each summer for the past 18 years they have assembled teams of the finest collegiate athletes from across the country, providing an opportunity for our community to gather with family and friends while enjoying the traditions and fellowship of our nation's pastime. And whereas the city of Leesburg wishes to congratulate the Leesburg Lightning players, coaches, interns, host families, volunteers, and leadership on their outstanding 2024 season. Now, therefore, I, James A. Burry, Jr., Mayor of the City of Leesburg, do hereby proclaim the achievements of the 2024 Leesburg Lightning, commend the determination and teamwork they displayed en route to winning the FCSL Championship, thank them for being great ambassadors for the City of Leesburg, and encourage everyone to support our home team in the upcoming seasons. Let's go Bolts. Come on, get a picture. What do we got? Come on. Any other? Yes.
Look over here.
Glenn, you need to be in here too.
No, I'm good. I'll break it. We're good.
We'll move on now to presentations. The agenda has a Susan Street project update that we will be doing. We also have a project on the new, a presentation on the new street cameras that are in the school zones. So at this point, if we can go ahead and give that.
The Leesburg Police Department is committed to creating a safe environment for our citizens, especially our children on their way to school. That's why starting in August, Leesburg is adopting a school zone speed enforcement program at strategic locations across the city. School zone speed enforcement programs have been proven to reduce speeds and enhance safety around schools, meaning fewer risks for our children as they cross the street.
Our goal with this new program is to change driver behavior in our school zones, lower the risk of accidents, and keep our students safe. A study of speed camera programs in 4 cities across the U.S. found the programs lowered the number of accidents resulting in injury or death by an average of 30%. In similar programs across Virginia, our partner, Ultimate, has seen a 55% decrease in speed violations within just 3 months. To me, any program that keeps our kids safe is invaluable. Children walking to school must be protected, and encouraging safe driver behavior around all school zones is a major step.
Our program will begin on August 12th with a 30-day warning period to introduce our community to the new system. Starting on September 10th, we'll begin issuing citations. Here's how the program works. These new cameras take pictures of the cars violating the speed limit in excess of 10 miles an hour or more in a school zone. Our partner, Ultimate, processes the data here in the United States, ensuring the integrity of the program and privacy of our citizens. Ultimate is one of the oldest and most experienced photo enforcement providers in the United States, and they launched the first school zone speed camera in our state earlier this year. They take our citizens' privacy seriously. Those who violate the posted speed will receive a citation in the mail with a $100 fine. Violations are a civil penalty, meaning no points on your license as long as you take care of the citation within 30 days.
We need to keep our students safe. Florida has a problem with speeding. In school zones, 38% of drivers admit to not adhering to reduced speeds. If you think about a child walking to school by themselves, what is their attention span? What is the likelihood that they are always alert? When a car is speeding, the driver has less time to react and slow down if that child steps off the curb.
By adding a consequence for speeding drivers, we will encourage them to follow the local traffic laws and slow down when driving around our schools. It's not worth compromising a child's safety regardless of the reason. It's worth driving the speed limit to save a life.
Got a lot of speeders that create a lot of issues for our kids that are walking to school or riding their buses to school. City of Leesburg has stepped up big time in an effort to keep our kids safe. We use some of the funds that come from these fines to invest more in technology for safety and security and just overall quality of life. It's a beautiful partnership, and just so thankful for the city for their support.
Signs will clearly alert drivers of school zones and where the speed limit is being monitored by the cameras. Enforcement hours begin 30 minutes before school, throughout the school day, and extend 30 minutes after school.
The beauty of this program is it's completely violator funded with no taxpayer burden. Plus, the money stays here in Leesburg. Funds collected from violators will go towards funding city programs and school safety programs as required by state law.
You know, speeding cars with kids walking across the street is a dangerous thing. You know, our children are the next generation, the future of the city. I have 2 children, 9 and 6, one going into the 4th grade, one into the 2nd grade at Leesburg Elementary. As growing up, I went to those schools. I had a friend get hit in the same school zone that my kids will be crossing through now. These cameras couldn't have come any sooner. You know, we have a lot of officers that are out and about, but they can't be everywhere all the time. It gives our officers an opportunity to police those areas without having to physically be there. And it's comforting to me as a parent to know that there is something being done to try to protect the kids in those school zones. So.
Knowing that this is not on a burden on the taxpayers, and we're still having the safety in place, so it's a win-win for us all. I have 2 kids that walk to school every day, and crossing over the busy road, it makes me more at ease that we will have something like this in place. Safety is put for the kids and for the parents as well, the kids that walk across a busy highway street. I'm grateful for this being in place and hoping that it'll help somebody else to think like, hey, we need this, and especially when it's a busy highway our kids got to cross every day.
While our ultimate goal is to receive voluntary compliance from the motoring public, this new program will ensure consequences for those who choose to ignore child safety in Leesburg, even when an officer is not physically there. We're leveraging technology as a force multiplier for our department. It's going to make Leesburg streets safer and will encourage safe driving behavior throughout our community.
To all the drivers out there,
These are our kids that are walking to these schools. Speed is important.
School's back in session.
let's slow down.
Slow down,
Slow down.
look both ways, and make sure our kids get to and from school in a safe manner.
And keep our kids safe.
Keep our kids safe.
I'm Joe Iozzi, your Chief of Police, and from all of us here at the City of Leesburg, please drive safely.
Thank you, guys. We'll move on now. We have a presentation in regards to the Susan Street update.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. My name is Travis Rima, Director of Parks and Recreation. We have been working on the Susan Street project, as you guys know, for over a year now, and it's been discussed for a lot longer than that. So we are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so we asked HAF to come in and do a brief presentation, show you where you're at, give us a little direction if there's any changes you'd like to see, and get us moving on to that 100% design and get the bid started. So I want to introduce Martin Steffen on behalf of HAF.
All right, thanks. So if you want to get right on into the presentation, let's get the party started. Oh, I got to do it. All right. Okay, so just quick overview of the design. I know that we've changed the entrance a few times, and now we're coming in off of 14th Avenue or 14th Street here. So this is a view of that coming in to the main entrance here. It's completely redesigned. It's a nice boulevard entrance, and then another Welcome to Leesburg sign there. That's not the final vision for that sign. We want to relate it back to sports. I think it'll be closer to something at the Aquatic Center where there'll be some flashing beacons there. There are 5 fields, 5 rugby fields throughout the complex. This one is going to be full synthetic. We envision this one being kind of a tournament play type facility here. You'll see the 2 buildings there at the end zone of the field. One of those is going to be restrooms. The other one will be concessions, ticket area, and a locker room. To the left of the field, there is going to be a grandstand and press box there, and that's going to match the architecture of kind of like the shipping containers. If you guys are familiar with, I think it's the Crate Village down there at Wesley Chapel. We're working with those guys to come up with a design here, but all the architecture will match, and it'll be wrapped to reflect back at Leesburg. And then here again is an aerial shot of the parking, and you can see the 2 shipping container buildings there, and then kind of like a common area there with a food truck. And there's the opposite angle. The main entrance point is just behind the bus there. There's an aerial view of what we anticipate this to look like. And then just another shot of the architecture that we'll be aiming for. And then lastly, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. So just in order, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fall, winter 2023 is when we kicked off this project with you all. We've been working diligently with Travis and his staff to come up with a design and produce something that reflects the highest and best use for the site. Fast forward to spring, summer now. We're continuing to refine the site just a little bit just to fit within budget, new entry, and evaluate additional funding sources. Those funding sources will be applying for those later this year. But with those funding sources, there are a couple additional site requirements that we're working into the site, and then working with the city to develop some creative solutions for that. Today, half is done with the site plan. We are filing for permits with the Water Management District and FDEP, and then once we get final plans back for lighting and the shipping containers, we'll be passing that off to the city. But right now, half is pencils down, waiting comments back from permitting agencies. And then number 4, moving forward, like I mentioned earlier, we'll be filling out those funding applications to help alleviate some of those budget constraints. That's what I got.
Anybody got questions? Thank you.
Sweet.
This time we'll move on to public comments. Item 4, this section is reserved for members of the public to bring up matters of concern or opportunities for praise. Issues brought up will not be discussed in detail at this meeting. Issues will either be referred to the proper staff or will be scheduled for consideration at a future City Commission meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. And would you please give your name and your address when you come to the mic? Are there any public comments?
Hello, my name's Casey Ross. I'm 26 years old and father of 3 girls. One is 6, the other is 4. Another baby just born last Thursday. I'm a small business owner of a welding and fabrication shop located within city limits by the name of Ross Family Fabrications, and I'm the sole provider for my family. Every day has been a struggle with the cost of groceries, gas, rent, among everything else, but I'll do everything I can to give my family the best possible life. I'm hoping that whoever is in charge of making the decision of if we can place a manufactured home and a well on our property could please allow us to have a chance to find our version of the American dream without adding unnecessary financial hardship. We are already having a difficult time making sure we have enough to build on our property due to the inflation of material costs and the increase of interest rates by our federal government. If we are forced to connect to city water 165 feet away from our property line, along with the additional $50,000 extra we would have to pay in order to get a modular home due to the in-place city ordinances, it will make our dream to have a place of our own next to impossible. I have been told by the utilities department that the best they can do is waive impact fees to connect to city water, and by city zoning, that the reason we cannot get the most affordable option of having a manufactured home on our 2-acre property located right up the road here, Morrison Road, is because it's not in a manufactured home park. Our property is on an unmaintained dirt road that is on the border of Lake County and Leesburg city limits, located in District 4. Our property is not visible to anyone but our 2 neighbors who drive through our shared easement, who are both not connected to city water and both have their own well. Thank you for your time listening to me, and God bless you. You're on the alternate key if you need it.
Where's Morrison Road?
Go to the end of Main Street, take a right where that curve is. There's a dirt road right there. You know where the Minutemen Press used to be? At the end down there?
Oh, yeah. You're
Yeah.
talking about Sunnyside, out that way.
Right.
Okay. I know where you're talking.
So, Mr. Ross, we will get in touch with you. I got your email a week ago, maybe 2 weeks. I was on vacation last week. I referred to planning and zoning. So I'll swing back around with Dan, and we'll be in touch with you about your issue.
Okay, should I expect any email or
You'll get a phone call.
a phone call? Okay.
Did you leave your contact information in your email?
Uh,
Or actually, the fellow right behind you in the yellow tie, that's Mr. Miller. If you can give him your phone number, he'll get back to you.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
Hello, my name is Joel Padilla. I live at 1632 Stearns Drive in Leesburg. I'm here because we've been having a big problem within the Overlook at Lake Griffin community, as far as people being killed, gunshots, drugs being distributed and sold in our neighborhood. Our HOA keeps referring us to go to the police department, which we do as homeowners, contact the police department, but we're not getting anywhere to any avail with anything. What the police will do is they'll go ahead and they'll drive by, do a quick drive-by. They'll see stuff going on, but won't get out the car. I know on my property alone, there was a gentleman that was arrested 4 times for trespassing on my property, threatening my family, just out of nowhere. And I've called the police department and had them come out there to try to arrest them, and I got the response that if they did not witness it, the gentleman would not be arrested, even though my property has a whole bunch of cameras along with Ring. Spoke to the district attorney about prosecuting, and they said, well, if they have the video, they should be able to lock them up because it's trespassing. And it's getting really tiring. I retired out here about 8, maybe 9 years ago, and it was a really quiet neighborhood until things started to change a bit in the neighborhood, but it's been left unchecked. I've personally spoken with Chief Hicks when he was the chief about the situation. I've invited law enforcement to stay on my property, access to the cameras, and anything that would go ahead and solve the issue. Again, with living there for almost 8, 9 years, I have children. My children can't go outside and play in the front. If they go outside and play in the front, it's a disaster or something may happen. On December 13th for last year, I went outside for a Walmart order, and there was a gunfight right in front of me. This is getting out of hand, and no one is helping. The HOA points one way, the police department points another. I've reached out to the police department recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, left voicemails, no return phone call, no nothing. And the situations are still going on. It's to the point that at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, because my property on the right side of the house is extremely elongated, people will park on my lawn and wait for someone to go ahead and bring them drugs or do something along those lines. And this is not what the community is about. That's not what Leesburg is about. And that community, living there, it was never like that. And it's just getting worse. It's not getting checked. There was a young gentleman that was shot in front of his driveway about a month or so ago. And again, if we had better police presence, it probably would have never happened. So I'm asking for the commissioners to help out with this situation. I have sent emails, and I came today because the mayor invited me to go ahead and come and speak regarding this issue, because we couldn't tell whether it was in District 4 or 5. But something needs to get done before other people get hurt, because we just don't feel safe. Thank you.
What is your exact address, please?
1632 Stearns Drive.
Stearns Drive.
The overlook behind Walmart?
Yes.
Or Walgreens
On
on Osceola.
the other way.
The
Okay.
first neighborhood, kind of to the, on the right-hand side, right at Park Holland.
I will reference, we did in budget this year, we did approve 6 more police officers. So hopefully that will help some. 12? 12, okay, I stand corrected, okay.
Well, we appreciate the fact that you guys approved it. The situation is that they're going to do something. Because when they show up, they try everything and anything not to handle the situation, and that's the problem. So if you have a police officer that's patrolling a neighborhood and they see something going on, but they don't get out and address it, and they just keep on rolling, then what's the use of having them? The problem is that they're not present. They only show up after the events have occurred and taken place, and then their investigation skills aren't up to par, because they will come up to residents knowing that they just witnessed somebody get shot and ask them in front of everybody in the neighborhood, oh, can we have access to your cameras, instead of doing it quietly or reaching out to them in another way so that you don't put that family at risk. Like, these are kids that live there. They go to Leesburg High School, they go to Carver Middle School, they go to Beverly Shores, they go to Fruitland Park. You know, it's not a ghetto community, but it's going to turn into that if it's not checked. And the problem is that it's not checked. There's plenty of videos online showing the cops just rolling straight by while illicit stuff is happening. You can roll by a neighborhood, but unless you stop and make your presence felt or address certain situations, like the loitering or people smoking weed or pot outside or doing anything like that, then what is there really left?
Okay, well, we appreciate you coming to the meeting. The police chief is here, so I'm sure he hears you loud and clear. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This time we'll move on. Any other public comment? This time we'll move on to the consent agenda. Before we talk about it, I would like to mention that item 5C5 has been withdrawn from the consent agenda. That's the Arbor Park Phase 1, so we won't, there's no need to pull it for any reason. We won't be discussing it. It is no longer on the agenda. So are there any items that anyone would like to pull?
5C4, 5C11, and 5C12.
Okay, 5C4.
Well, we don't need to do all three, or unless, I just want Al to give an overview.
Going to have to, if they're pulled, we're going to address.
That's fine.
We'll then have to do a vote on each one independently. Okay, so give me the next number, 5C.
4, 11, and 12. Sir.
11 and 12. Okay. Are there any other items that anyone would like to pull?
May I ask to have questions on, I think it's 5C2?
So you want to pull 5C2?
Yeah, we'll pull it.
Pull that? Okay. All right, so we have pulled 5C2, 5C4. 5C5 will not be discussed tonight. It will be on a later meeting. 5C11 and 5C12. Is that correct? Okay. If we get a motion.
Make a motion to approve all remaining items.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Someone please introduce 5C2.
I'll introduce 5C2 to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing and directing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement for school resource officer SRO services to be provided at Lake County School Board Leesburg Schools for the 2024-25 school year starting in August 2024 and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes,
Allison.
I have a question, please. I wanted to ask that there's 4 school resource officers selected, and I was wondering if the middle school, Carver Middle, could be considered as one additional school to be added.
I think the sheriff's office does that.
Yeah,
So we split it with them.
Yeah, so all the schools are covered.
Okay.
And so it's a historical kind of thing that the SO is covered. Was it Carver?
Correct.
Okay.
Can you explain why we've done that?
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, so historically, we had the schools, and then there was some contractual issues many years ago, and then the sheriff's office took over all the schools. And then when we initiated working in all the schools, that's when we got back into the schools, and the sheriff's office still retained the middle schools.
Okay, so there will be someone at
Yes.
Carver Middle.
There
Yes.
are
Just-
currently.
They'll have a
now-
green uniform instead of a blue.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I
Yeah,
was
they're all
thinking
covered
to
per
prepare them
statute.
for high school, that would be more interaction for the community
And
if
that-
they knew who and what officer was in place, you know.
I would anticipate there may come a time that we'll be in the middle schools as well, but retention, recruiting, those are variables that also come into play there too.
It's just my focus, and have expressed the relationship building for the kids, that they see someone that they can relate to on campus and as well as in the neighborhood, so that you can establish some type of rapport to know who and where lives where if there's issues.
Agreed.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions for?
That was it for me.
Motion to approve that. Let's do them one at a.
We got to do roll call.
We have a motion. Or do you want to?
5C2, we got to do
Right, right, so we just need a roll
Yeah,
call.
yeah. Okay.
All right, so roll call.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Someone please introduce 5C4.
I'll introduce 5C4, A, B, and C. Do you read by title only? Or do we have to do each
No,
one?
let's do them, we're going to read them all, and then we'll address each one with a separate.
So introduce them all right
Yes.
now.
Okay. 5C4A. Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute Amendment 1 to Public Transportation Grant Agreement, FM number 438449-1-94-01, between the City of Leesburg and the State of Florida Department of Transportation for the purpose of adding additional funding for construction of Phase 1 aircraft hangar buildings and associated taxi lanes project at the Leesburg International Airport and providing an effective date. 5C4B, resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a task order with Avcon, Inc. for construction oversight services for Phase 1 hangar infrastructure at the Leesburg International Airport and providing an effective date. 5C4C, resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a construction services agreement with Bulldog Site Work LLC for Phase 1 hangar infrastructure project at the Leesburg International Airport for an amount not to exceed $1,849,637.13 and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
I pulled this
Discussion?
item
Yeah.
just so Al could give a brief overview that we're not spending general fund money on this. This is coming out of the airport revenue, things like that. So I just
So yeah, this is one of the primary objectives of the Airport Advisory Board and City Commission has been to build additional hangar facilities. So we have identified an area at the airport roughly across the street from Jenkins and was that the Kia place, just to the east of Wilco. Is it east or west? Wilco, right? East, kind of the center of the airport there on 441, right? When you all drive past it, you see a bunch of cars parked there now. But that's really the most available space the airport has for development of hangar space. So the plan there ultimately is to have hangar space where I believe we have got 2 T hangars and 2 corporate hangar rows of facilities, which is the next phase. The first phase of this, however, is to develop the site, get the pads ready for construction. So the $1.8 million readies the acreage there to put in these facilities later. The subsequent agreements then is a grant agreement for funding in the, what is that, 1.6 mil from the state for grant funding. The second agreement is to have a construction services agreement with Avcon to monitor the construction and inspect it while it's going on. And then the third resolution is the execution of the contract for construction with Bulldog, 1.8 million, the rest of which comes from the city, the Delta, to get the site readied and prepped. Once that's done, we'll then move into a bid phase to start building the facilities as grant money and cash is available at the airport.
Excellent. Any other questions on that? All right, so we need to vote individually now that we've pulled it, Grant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we've introduced the motion, so we'll start with item 4A, okay? Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. 4B, roll call.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. And 4C, roll call.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Someone please introduce 5C11.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
Sorry.
Too fast.
Yeah. Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the city manager to enter into a loan agreement with the Department of Environmental Protection under the state revolving fund for project financing forgiveness for $19 million under the SAHFI supplemental funding for Hurricanes Fiona and Ian State Revolving Fund Loan Program and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion.
I pulled this item so Al could give a brief synopsis on this as well.
So essentially, the $19 million state revolving fund loan is a grant that's being called a loan. The money stems back to the federal government, and its purpose is to fix infrastructure around the nation. We found out about this program probably later or earlier this spring, winter. It was made aware to us by Dewberry, our engineers who helped us with the design on the Turnpike expansion, as well as rehabilitation. So because we invested the $40 million in that plant, it made us eligible to use these state revolving funds to refund our expense there. This resolution allows us to complete the application work to put in for the grant. We are very optimistic and hopeful that this is a formality, but we won't count that bird until we catch it out of the bush, but very optimistic that the funding will come to the city. One or two other cities in the lake received a similar type of funding in previous years when we did not apply because we had already got our project underway. So long story short, very hopeful that this grant / loan will be awarded to the city. We should know probably in the next 90 to 120 days if the funding is received. If the funding is then received, there's a couple of options to use the money for. One would be to restructure the loan. As you know, we did a $30 million. The plant project cost $40 million. We used about $10 million in cash, and we did a bank note for the other $30 million. So we could restructure that bank note. I'm probably going to recommend to you that we don't restructure that bank note because the interest rate was favorable, and also I'm not sure of some of the restrictions that may have been in the bank note on restructuring that this quickly. We're just about only into our first year of that 30-year note. But then the second option then is to be able to use that money to replenish cash. $10 million of it is the money that we spent on the plant, and that would leave available $9 million, which will then be eligible for other sewer improvement projects. So that's whether we're maintaining or increasing lift station sizes, changing out older sewer main. It's a good injection to the sewer fund.
That was great news.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
All right. Roll call.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Someone please introduce 5C12.
I'll introduce 5C12 to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an amendment to the agreement of purchase and sale between the City of Leesburg and Blue Rock Development, LLC, to extend the governmental approval period and closing date and reduce the purchase price by $150,000, approving certain deposit payments and providing an effective date.
Move for approval for discussion.
Second.
So I pulled this item as well. If Al could also give a brief overview, and then we could have discussion about it.
Absolutely. I'll tee this up for the commission's discussion. So the issue probably brewed here pretty quickly, and I can't remember the deadline on the grant or the deadline on the contract. I think it's the middle of this week or something like
August
that.
15th.
The 15th. So August 15th was the deadline. The request for this started a couple weeks ago, but really materialized the Wednesday or Thursday before I left for vacation. So in essence, Blue Rock, who were under contract for $2.75 million to sell approximately 7.5 acres of airport property at the intersection of College and 441, has requested a reduction in that price. The reduction is asked for unforeseen development costs, engineering costs as a part of the due diligence period. The three specific issues where Blue Rock states that they had unforeseen development issues are associated with the state and ingress-egress on 441. Also, the county is a little bit in there too because the site developed some tricky ingress-egress issues. One, on that note, on 441 headed, I guess technically to the north, but it's to the west. There's a right-hand turnoff that took some additional work, but also there was some considerable work that we had to do with the county on the college ingress egress and some stacking queues, and Blue Rock has also had done some additional traffic studies trying to align the driveway of the college and their entry. So what happens then is, so if you're driving to the south, or which is actually the east on 441, to get into the site, then you can't use that ingress egress on 441. You would need to take a left at that light, go on to college, and then turn left. The county has been strict in the interpretation of their code in terms of queuing and stacking. So Blue Rock had some additional traffic engineering reporting to do in surveys to show the county that their concerns of stacking back into 441 in the westbound lane wasn't a concern, and that's in their attempt to get that, again, that driveway of the college and the entryway of the commercial plaza on College Avenue to line up. That was unanticipated. The other issue that they had was some differences on direction after initial work from the Water Management District on dry retention versus wet retention. But then finally, probably the biggest engineering issues that they had is really associated with the FAA. And as you know, that property is kind of on the edge of the RPZ there for one of our runways and has some site issues. So they went through a number of hurdles to get that done. So they have requested the reduction in price to cover some of those costs. They have also asked to push back some of the closing dates, and I don't remember specifically what that number is. I think was another grant.
Yeah, I think the closing would move as proposed to January 15th or so of next year.
That allows them to finish up. Mostly, I think the issues with the county and making sure that they can get their driveway and the college's driveway aligned on College Boulevard. The problem and the reason that is a critical juncture is obviously that those entry points are close to 441, and because of the height restrictions, they have to push some of their buildings back. So if they have to push their driveway back to the north on College, closer to Silver Lake Drive, then they lose the ability to put in facilities, because then that triggers some height issues. So there was some complications there that arose. As far as specifics, I can't speak to their costs. I don't have those on a high level. I would capitulate that I think there's a few issues that they ran into that they didn't have. Commissioner Reisman contacted me earlier, or actually later in the day, and again, I was playing a little bit of catch up from vacation, so we teed this up to go on the commission agenda late in the week before I left for vacation, and I got out correspondence to Tracy, to Grant, to get this teed up for you all, and then Tracy took it upon herself, which is exactly what you want your department heads to do in this case, to have some discussion with the Airport Advisory Board on the matter to get you a little bit of input from there. So as I was going through my emails this morning, I got some of that input. So I think there was some concern from the Airport Advisory Board. I don't know if there's any members from the Airport Advisory Board here who'd like to speak, or if you all spoke to your member about the board, and some question on more detail of where exactly those developer expenses were. So I would say it's fair to say that the Airport Advisory Board, probably from my interpretation of the emails and talking with Tracy today, was wondering whether you should reduce the price. I will advise you that I think that this is probably a reasonable reduction. And the reasonable reduction is because, and it's really, for lack of better analogy, it's really kind of the burden bush versus burden hand type of situation. You have an asset that we did an appraisal on that was valued at $2.55 million. We hired Grizzard Commercial Realty. We worked through Dan Tatro as the primary agent on the deal, and Dan worked the deal to get us, I'm going to say, almost 2 offers. We had an initial offer, or Dan could probably talk to you about this better, but unofficially, as Dan was marketing the property for us, he had 2 significant developers interested in the property. One was Blue Rock, and one was a company called Brightworks. Dan leveraged the best deal for us he could. And while we only received 1 official offer, Dan used his skills in networking and leveraged a potential offer, which, again, this is unofficial. It was not provided to us, but we might have gotten an offer for $2.45 million from Brightworks. Brightworks is a developer for Wawa. Since the time we went into contract on this, I'm not sure if it's Brightworks or another developer, but a Wawa closed on a deal, which is now in DRC, which was in your monthly report. So there's a Wawa that is in DRC, which is the review for the city to be constructed at the northeast corner of 468, better known as Red Road, and West Main. So whether that deal is out there in the future or not, I don't know. And that's really why I think this question becomes difficult. Do you stand firm? You know, a deal is a deal. $2.75 million is what they signed up for. 9 months into it, they're asking for a reduction. So I sent out a quick email to y'all. I gave you all a heads up and a phone call conversation to look for this data because it did come late in the day. So let me just read off these numbers to you, and I think these are kind of the important numbers that you want to keep in mind as you determine whether or not you do want to accept the offer or counteroffer or how you may move. So again, we got an appraisal for $2.55 million from Market Connections. We got an offer, a bona fide offer that we put under contract about 9 months ago for $2.75 million from Blue Rock, and we had that unofficial kick in the tires, so to speak, at $2.45 million from Brightwork. We know that due to circumstances here in the due diligence period, that Lake Sumter Community State College was upset with us over a historic 40-year-old deal where when that property was given to us, we promised we would never sell it and could never sell it, and restrictions, and 40 years later, FAA regulations changed that opened up really the window for us to just sell this property probably in the last 3 years, where the FAA's inventory regulations have been significantly laxed, and their position is as long as you're getting fair market value for property, you can sell it. I've been a city manager for 30 years, and I can tell you that that is a new policy. So in the past, trying to sell your inventory of airport property was a difficult endeavor with the FAA. So when we made that promise 40 years ago, I understand it. And I've been in that side of it, and I've also seen how the FAA has changed their regs in the last 3 years. So I think a couple of meetings ago, we endeavored to try to make good with the college, and we put out a resolution that said we would endeavor to work with the college, the county, and the mall to relocate the bus stop as a good token effort. And I believe you all passed that resolution, which kind of laid out how we would move forward. So all that story to say, 50 grand we knew was going to come off the top of this deal. So if you put in another 150 out of the deal, that's about 200. As far as then, just for comparison purposes, to look what you walk away with from your asset, I think then there becomes 3 numbers you need to look at. 2.75 million, which is the agreed upon contractual that Blue Rock is asking you to change. If you do that change, you're now at 2.6 million. And then do you want to consider, just for sake of argument, is there something out in the bush that you may get? And so, well, maybe 2.45 is a good comparison. We know our closing costs are going to be a real estate commission, dock stamps, and title fees. And while it's not an official transaction, it needs to go in your equation, the bus stop, which we have an estimate from the county at 50 grand. So if you say no to the developer, we're not going to lower your price, you would walk away with about $2.5 million net. The question becomes does the developer walk away? As a side note, you're sitting on about $75,000 in escrow money. The city attorney and I have talked today. We think that there's probably $40,000 to $45,000 of that escrow that if you don't close, doesn't go back. And we also think the second payment, the way we structured the escrow payment of $30,000, probably we're going to be in an argument about whether you pay back. So I think we're comfortable to say that if the deal doesn't close, you're probably going to get $40,000 to $45,000, and we might have to argue about $30,000. So that means, yeah, some of the escrow money probably stays with us if the deal doesn't close, but maybe not all of it. To be determined. But that, I would remind you that escrow money is a pretty small number in this deal. I think it's important to point that out, but I wouldn't let that escrow money be a factor in how you make a vote on their request to reduce the price of $150. All in, so if you do with the bus stop and the other closing costs, if you do a deal at $275, assuming Blue Rock doesn't walk away, you pocket $2.5 million. If you do a more secure option and you lower the price to $2.6, well, you walk away with $2.365 in your pocket. And if you go back now and then tell Tetro, go back to the drawing board and come up with a deal at $2.45, you walk away with $2.2. So I think the two numbers that you want to keep in your head is the $2.5, which may be in jeopardy, maybe not. I think if you all need to push back on that, which is your prerogative, this is where you do that. If you want to take the secure route, it's $2.365. We might be able to even beat up Mr. Tetro on his commission a little bit. We can figure that out after the fact, which will keep a little more coin at you. So long story short, do you want to end up with a 2.5 as a gamble, play a little roulette with the developer, or do you want to take what you know you're probably going to close on in the last few days? I think Blue Rock and the county, I would say that the last big hurdle in closing this deal is getting the driveway approach for the development and the driveway approach for the county lined up. Blue Rock is very confident that once they have their traffic survey in, that they'll be able to convince the county to agree to align those driveways. So that's the last big hurdle. So with 2.3, maybe a little bit more, 2.36, maybe a little bit more, closer to 2.5, you're kind of in the ballpark of what the appraised value is, and you're still netting above by $100,000 or so $1,000, probably almost 200 grand, what may be an offer in the, a potential offer that never came in. So you really have a difficult question on, you have a good asset, we have no cash investment. It's pretty much, for lack of, in a vulgar way to say it, it's pretty much gravy. And so it's an asset that we're not going to develop airport-wise with because on an airport side, it's across the street from the airport, so that it doesn't have significant airside airport value to us. We're not going to put a hangar over there, in other words. It's a difficult site because of the FAA restrictions. It's a difficult site for ingress egress because of stacking. And I will say, I think Blue Rock's done an excellent job to stay with it. I think some of the other developers would potentially probably have already let this expire and not closed on it because of the amount of work that had to go on with Blue Rock and the additional transportation studies to get their driveway easements lined up. So I would recommend to you to capitulate to the agreement and approve the resolution that's in the packet. Mr. Tetro's here, representative from Blue Rock is here. If you have specific questions for them, and this is really now at your discretion on how you want to move forward.
Ellen, you
I pulled this. When I first got on the commission, I asked Al to market this property because I knew it would be some good revenue for the airport, and it was not usable, like he said, for airside. I'm a little taken back by this is unknown territory for a developer, especially for someone like Blue Rock. You made an offer. We accepted it. We need to stand our ground on this. I'm fine with moving the closing date, and then I think the obstructions that they say they're running into with the FAA, I think our staff probably did a good job explaining the process, and I can't support lowering the price of $150,000. You signed an agreement, you agreed to the contract, you need to stick to it.
Other comments?
I would agree with Commissioner Reisman, and that's where I was for a while. And when Al called me, I probably had the same reaction at first. But then the more I thought about the FAA and what that's brought, the additional work that's created, that tugged at me a little bit. The other thing, as great as this property is, the FAA has height restrictions on the property, which is negative for the developer. I think the big one is when you look at the property on the side street, College Drive, they cannot do residential, which would, to me, would be the highest and best use next to the college. So the property is a little bit unique. So I've come from agreeing with Commissioner Reisman, and I've come full circle now. I would support the reduction. Blue Rock's invested in other properties in our city. I think they are a sophisticated developer who understands this. I don't take this lightly, but the $2,450,000, I don't really weigh that. But I think if we went back to market, I don't know, especially after this conversation right here in the public, if we're going to do much better. And we've got time value of money. We got a buyer who seems committed. I would support it.
May I ask again, what was the recommendation of the board again? What was stated? What would the board say?
I don't believe the board had a recommendation. I was not at the meeting. Tracy Dean was. I don't believe, Tracy, you want to give your summary on the board discussion, which was Thursday last week?
It was Thursday. Good evening. I don't know where that on is.
You're good. Yes,
Tracy Dean, Airport Manager. So I brought this up just under the manager update as an informational to give to the advisory board. We did have a quorum of 3. But again, they didn't make a recommendation one way or another. It was just a discussion because I wanted to bring it to their attention that it was on tonight's agenda. One member who was present at the meeting mentioned that he was going to try and make it here to speak his opposition on it. One member who I debriefed after who didn't make it to the meeting also said that he may be here. And neither of those members are here tonight. But again, it wasn't a formal recommendation one way or another. And I think ultimately they wanted more information on the number of $150,000 and where that came from. I didn't have those details for them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Tracy?
I spoke with my appointee. I was there as well. And Byron Oldham, he was against the proposed.
Any other questions for Tracy? Do we have any other, thank you, Tracy. Yeah. Do we have any other public comment? Anyone would like to come up and speak?
Hello, I'm Joe Schuman, the president of Blue Rock, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to discuss this. I think Al nailed everything that's going on here with some of the additional studies that are being required. But let's keep in mind that I've been very cooperative on some of the cleanup issues with some of the deeds with the property, of which the College Drive seems to be a private road that we've been willing to work with. You know, it's not in my DNA to retrade, and we do proper due diligence, but when we first contracted on the property, one, we were not able to do the uses which are the highest and best uses. 2, some of the other uses that were not in favor of the city, like car wash, we agreed not to do. But the main cost here, and if I drop it, anyone else is going to uncover this, is it's heavily wooded, so we have additional landscaping buffers that we're having to put in, which is a cost that we didn't anticipate. And then we went to go and over-excavate the pond because the site drops off tremendously and it's a low grade. So when you do a development, you over-excavate a pond to use the fill. Now the water management said that we'll have to do a dry pond, so we're going to have to import a bunch of extra cost in order to do so. To be honest with you, my price was a lot higher than 150. I think from consulting with Dan, we had said 100. I said, let's go for 150 just because, I mean, there's so many variable costs with lining up of the curb cut and dealing with the college, et cetera, that, I mean, there's so much risk that we're taking to take a site that's irregular shaped, restrictions, FAA. I mean, I had to spend a fortune with extra consultants with FAA. Tracy's been amazing to work with, but we're not there yet with the height, so that kind of clamps down on the cost. I mean, those power lines, we're going to be putting those underground in order to create that access. So I think, you know, as a partnership, I would say Blue Rock has been very hands-on deck and willing to work with the city on those deed issues and extra legal costs, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, it's a low site, heavily wooded, with tons of with deed restrictions or use restrictions. So I thought 150,000 was a fair deal. I'm not a big retrader, but the numbers don't work. They don't work. I mean, with that intersection, who knows how many extra lanes we're going to have to put in. I may have to put in another turn lane there to relieve traffic. I'm not asking for any money for that. So I think it's a fair ask.
Can I ask Dan a question? The landscape buffer, what are we doing there? What is the requirement for a landscape buffer?
It's additional because of the amount of trees we're taking down. We're having to replace them.
Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning. Off the top of my head, I believe we had a 15-foot along 441.
So, but down the RPZ and all that stuff, we're not doing it?
No, it's standard.
So it's just the standard along the highway. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but you knew what the property was. It was wooded. And then, Tracy, can you answer the height restrictions for the FAA? Did they decline any of those points, or were those still under review?
They're still under review right now.
So the FAA hasn't declined any of those yet?
Well, it's been a little up and down. There was a couple of hiccups just based on the accuracy, and that might not be the right word, but of the survey. The airspace study program will default to a certain type of survey which puts these imaginary surfaces even farther out to allow the higher up. But Blue Rock had actually gotten a 1A survey, which will bring those minimums a lot closer and allow to build a lot higher. The last look at it, I think there was maybe one corner of one building out of 6 structures that maybe needed a little bit of tweak, but I believe that they anticipate the determinations any day, and I don't see anything getting scrapped.
Thank you, Tracy.
If anything, they might have to light with a red light on,
Similar
a
to
light pole or a corner of
similar
a
to
building.
what Jenkins did.
Sorry?
Similar to what Jenkins Auto Group did with their
Exactly.
building? Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions regarding Blue Rock? Do we have any other public comments on this?
Dan Tatro with Grizzard Commercial. I just want to point out on the development side, guys, I wish it was, as y'all all know, I've done a lot of development in this city and in this county. This is probably one of the more complicated sites I've seen in quite a while, especially from a commercial standpoint. The FAA actually has a height restriction which starts on College Drive and goes straight down like that, which is going to render part of the property on the airport side pretty much useless other than for retention and stuff like that. It's the low areas, the dirt being brought in, dirt costs 4 times as much as it did 5 years ago. You can ask any site work excavator, any site work contractor that. They'll all tell you the same thing. Most developers, in my opinion, would have run already. They would have run 6 months ago. It got complicated. College Drive was, nobody could figure out who owned College Drive for a while, which Joe mentioned. It was it's the counties, it's the cities, somebody private owns it. Then there's a private sewer line that was running down College Drive, which nobody could figure out initially. There's been a lot of extra stuff on this deal it's abnormal. So we're getting there. I think Joe's done a great job. He's developed in the city of Leesburg already in the past. We've dealt with him. I think a lot of developers would have run, especially with the FAA stuff, not having approvals yet.
Any questions for Dan? Any questions for Dan?
I would just point out we're still above appraised value, which, we sell a lot of properties around, through the city at appraised value.
I want to make one other comment, guys. Mr. Minner brought up that beating me up, you can beat me up. I don't mind. On my side, to help with that reduction, I have no problem with that, which we'd have to determine, but I have no problem with that.
Any other comments from the commission? Just one comment. If this is, you're saying you ran into unforeseen problems, so therefore we should give you a reduction on the price. So if you didn't have those problems, were you going to pay us more?
The numbers barely work at that. I mean, when you, like I said, there's wetland on the property, so we're encumbering.
But you knew that.
Nobody would know that. No, we didn't know that
No,
until
we
you
didn't
get
know
into
that.
it. It was a small pocket of wetland that was unforeseen.
So you bought a property that you didn't know there were wetlands on.
No, we do the due diligence.
Yeah, you have
and
to
we
do
run
your
the
due
numbers,
diligence, period.
and then the numbers will dictate whether or not we proceed or not. And as far as Grant looking at the timelines, this contract was very tricky in that we had to base it on FAA approval and so forth. So I believe we're still in the contract due diligence period, of which I was trying to uncover the cost associated with doing the development. The unknown still is College Drive and what we need to do to that intersection to improve it, the cost of the fill. We were going to dig the pond on site and take the fill and move it. If you can't over excavate and you have to have a dry pond, you can't get that fill there. That's a deal breaker. And like Dan said, I mean, if it doesn't work for me, it doesn't work for the next guy. It's not like people are lined up to be right across from the airport with height restrictions.
And you also have use restrictions. No residential on the backside. We put additional use restrictions on there at the request of one of the commissioners for no car washes, no Dollar General, stuff like that that's in the PUD.
Right. Right. Any other comments from the commission?
It's a tough one. I respect all the commissioners' questions. My concern is, we don't give him what he wants. He walks, and are we going to be, just 3, 6, 9, 12 months before we get another contract running? Maybe at this price. I don't know. I guess I'm just looking at time value of money. I see a chance to put $2.4 million in the airport fund January 25. I still have some ways to go, but obviously I support it and like to see this thing done and convert this land to cash.
I want to bring up one other quick thing. When we did the Wawa on 468, which Mr. Minner brought up, private sector deal all the way around, but we had to have a meeting with the county and the city because the county engineer jumped in on the road situation and wanted us to line up with the traffic count of a building that had 20 cars coming out of it. It ended up shifting everything further, what would that be, north on 468. And my client they came back with an ask. I'm not going to give the number because it was a private sector deal similar to this, and my client ended up giving that number off to make that Wawa deal work, which is a combination of why I'm telling y'all I wouldn't do it on my end if I didn't think this was the right deal to make, because otherwise you're starting the process over again, and the process for development is complicated.
I have one question for Grant. So the contract date expires 8/15?
Hang on one second. Let me look at
the due diligence date.
Yeah, there were two. There was the initial inspection period, and then there was the additional, the governmental approval period. Sorry, I'm just looking through the recitals here real quick.
I'm just getting at when if you
Government
guys
approval
say-
was August 15th.
So
was the
if
expiration,
the
yeah.
commission says no, does developer have to give us notice to back out of the deal, or is it just go silent and then bam?
Yeah,
contract's
if they
done,
don't,
8/15?
if they don't get their extension here, then they could terminate within the governmental approval period, and then in that case, we would be sort of in that battle.
What's the
of
governmental approval period?
That expires
8/15?
the 15th, correct. So that would, again, Mr. Minner talked about the initial deposit, the $40,000. So that one is non-refundable at this point. The $30,000 is somewhat of a conflicting provisions in the contract, so it's unclear what might happen to that. The additional $5,000 is for the extension of the governmental approval period. So if that's not extended, then that deposit would never really be due. So the $40,000 I think stays if they were to walk. The $30,000 is unclear.
Look, obviously this is a difficult one for you. I feel your pain. I think the points that you have to look at, I think as elected public officials, I think there's a want to live up to the letter of the contract. This is what we did. This is what we signed. We're stewards of the public money. I feel your pain on that. But then I think you also need to put on your business hat. And I would say to Mr. Tatro's story about the Wawa, that was a closed business deal. But on the business side, those same business people who yell at you for your fiduciary responsibility are also going to judge you on your business acumen. And that business person cut his price to get a deal done. So I'd remind you that this is an asset. It's sitting there. It stinks that you have to cut your price, but you're going to walk away with considerable cash, which is going to help airport goals. And then on a personal side, if you have a property or if you have a facility that's just an asset sitting there for you, but it's got some pimples and it's got some issues, and you're going to be put it into just a context of a residential issue. You got a house that's worth $200,000 maybe, and you got to cut 20 grand off the price to get 180 clear in your pocket. Are you going to give up that 5%? I mean, I can't answer that question for you. I think it's a difficult question. I understand the situation you're in. Again, my recommendation is take the money and run.
I want to point out one last thing, guys. Any contract that comes back, if for some reason that's the way it went, and we go out and we hunt for other contracts, they're going to ask for a long time. They all do anymore. They all ask for 12 to 16 months on average. The Wawa deal took us 16 months to get closed.
So you're saying regardless that it's going to be a time frame that
You're going to
will
start
have
the
wait.
process over, looking for a new buyer. Then you're going to have to negotiate a contract, and that contract will have the same provisions, and they're going to go through the exact same process because every developer would attempt to do the same thing. Some won't last as long as others, though, because they'll get scared off by certain things sooner than others. It just depends on the situation and who it is.
And I'll just point out, too, there was something in the memo here about Blue Rock having not or owing some deposits, and they have actually paid that additional deposit and the extension deposit, which is technically not even due at this point. So our escrow account does have all of those deposits paid at this point. They had asked for it, or I think we had written in September 15th as a due date for those payments, but we do have those payments in hand now.
It's my opinion. I disagree with my city manager. I think we have a contract. I agree with Alan on this, that we had a willing buyer that negotiated a contract with us, and we need to live up to that contract.
I correlate this to like something in our business when we bid a government contract, say for one of our helicopters for 5 years at like $15 million or so. pricing for fuel can be $2 a gallon now, and it could be $7 in year 4 and 5. I still have to eat that cost because I'm contractually obligated at that cost. So you have to factor that into your bid. And I think that was part of this. You have to factor all these things into your bid that they made to us, and we accepted it.
I'll repeat myself, but I think what moved me over, to switch my opinion on this is the FAA. The additional due diligence, I can only imagine, and then all the restrictions on the property. That's what swayed me in the end here.
Any other comments? Any other public comment? Roll call.
One more thing. So either way we go, if we decline this agenda item, we need to make a motion to give the due diligence period extension.
Yeah, you could certainly do that. You could approve a portion of the ask here and disapprove of the rest of it. So you could. We may need to amend our motion. I don't recall the motion that was on the floor.
This is just an up or down of whether we're going to.
Oh, this is just up. Okay, so there's no motion at this point. Okay.
Right. This could just.
But yes, you could specify that if you'd like to.
Once we vote, do we have a chance to come back and talk about a different price reduction, or is it done? I mean, I guess I want to get a pulse from the commission. If it's going to get voted down, I'd like to at least talk about a different price reduction versus voting it down and being done. I guess I'm not clear procedurally on that. I mean,
so really what this motion says is we're just reducing the purchase price.
There's the reducing the purchase price, pushing out the closing date to January whatever.
And extending the government approval.
So my guess would be is if you vote this down, you could make another motion and continue the discussion on the topic.
Thank you. That was my question.
Okay.
Make a motion. Oh, we already have a motion.
We have a motion
on the floor.
Yeah, before you. Any other comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
No.
Commissioner Connell?
No.
Commissioner Reisman?
No.
Mayor Burry?
No.
I would like to make a motion to extend the due diligence period of the contract for, what do they need, 6 months?
September, let's see, November 15th was the requested extension date, with closing extended to January 15th. So the governmental approval, the request was to extend that to November 15th, and the request to extend closing to January 15th.
As Mr. Grant stated.
I have a question before. Is a motion on? There's no.
I made a motion, yes.
Oh.
We have a
Is that
motion.
Aaron?
Yeah, let's do this. And when we discuss the motion, you can ask your question. How about that? Okay, so we have a motion to approve the extension period.
As stated by Grant.
As stated by Grant?
Yes, sir. And I'll
Give us
just,
that again, please.
Yeah, I'll just clarify that again. So the motion would be to extend the governmental approval period to November 15th, 2024, and extend closing to January 15th, 2025.
Okay. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Any other discussion? You had a question, Allison?
Yes, I had a question if any of that could be changed. That's all I was trying to ask. The extension, could we move it up or extend it back, or that's all? That is as is.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if the approvals come back sooner, they'll move quicker.
close it
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this gives them enough time to do
Okay,
that.
that's what I was asking.
That's right.
Okay.
Closing date is always on or before,
Okay.
so if things wrap up sooner, we could theoretically do that sooner. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions? Roll call.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes.
Moving right along.
All right. We'll move on to public hearings and non-routine items. Someone please introduce item 6A, 1, 2, and 3. Actually, before we introduce those, do we need to introduce them first, Grant, before you swear folks in, or do you want to?
We can do it however you want to,
Let's
Mr.
go
Mayor.
ahead and swear
Go ahead and swear everybody in. Okay, yes, sir. I'll be
1, 2,
happy.
and 3, and 4, 5, and 6.
Yes, sir. All right, so if anybody here is planning to speak on item 6A3, the North Shore PUD rezoning, or 6A6, the Post Street PUD rezoning, if you would please stand and raise your right hand so you could be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that all testimony you'll give tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Grant. Okay, so if someone would please introduce 6A, 1, 2, and 3.
I'll introduce 6A, 1, 2, and 3 to be read by title only.
6A1, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 40.61 plus minus acres, being generally located north of North Shore Drive and west of Beverly Point, lying in Section 14, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of the said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 5 and providing an effective date. 6A2, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 40.61 plus minus acres from Lake County urban medium density to City of Leesburg conservation and estate residential for property generally located north of North Shore Drive and west of Beverly Point Road, lying in Section 14, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6A3, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning of approximately 40.61 plus minus acres from Lake County C1 Neighborhood Commercial to City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development for a property generally located north of North Shore Drive and west of Beverly Point Road, lying in Section 14, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Thank you.
For approval?
Second. All right, so Dan, if you'd please come up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning. This is a North Shore Drive project known as Carrasco. It's a request for an annexation, large-scale comp plan and small-scale comp plan and rezoning of the property. Consists of a proposed PUD on 40 acres, strictly for residential development. Property is currently under Lake County jurisdiction. It's basically surrounded by City of Leesburg property. The future land use is county urban medium density. And they'd like to go to city estate and conservation, which the majority of property being in wetlands would go into conservation. The current zoning is under county C1, their neighborhood commercial, and the zoning would go to PUD. Again, 40 acres with the majority of that in wetlands. Only the far southern area of the property fronting North Shore Drive is useful or proposed for development. There would be 8 single-family detached units, no other uses allowed within that property. Minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. Lots would be 90 by 115. There are design and architectural standards, dark sky lighting, 35% open space, which they'll clearly meet. Small tot lot is required. Site access will be by each unit along North Shore Drive. Obviously, we've put in protection for the wetlands and flood zones via the conservation, future land use. There'll be no wells or septics, and no St. Augustine grass. I believe Mr. Jason Lee of H2O Development is here, along with Mr. Jeff Summit of GL Summit Engineering, to answer any other questions you may have. Thank you.
How many units, Dan?
8.
Any questions for Dan? Any other? You got any questions? Okay. Any questions for the petitioner? Would the petitioner like to speak at all? Or? All righty.
Now, Dan, what's the, I know we're just talking about 8 units, but what's the lot sizes?
The lot sizes would be 90 by 115, which works out to around 10,000 square feet.
Okay. So 90-foot width lots. Okay.
Yes, sir, 90 by 115.
Okay.
And that's pretty standard for the rest of the neighborhood community?
Yes, sir. This one was pushed back by Planning Commission some time ago, and they wanted us to go in and look at the lots in the area and match that up, and that's what we did.
Yep. Is there any public comment on this item? No public comment? We good, Grant? Okay. Roll call?
Yes, sir.
What's that? Well,
Separate votes.
We're
yes,
going to
sir.
vote on.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing 6A1 first. Yeah. Roll call.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Roll call on 6A2.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. And roll call on 6A3.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Someone please introduce 6A4, 5, and 6.
I'll introduce 6A, 4, 5, and 6 to be read by title only.
6A4, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 49.12 plus minus acres, being generally located north of Post Street and south of County Road 473, lying in Section 2, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, provided that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 5 and providing an effective date. 6A5, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 49.12 plus minus acres from Lake County urban low density to City of Leesburg estate residential for a property generally located north of Post Street and south of County Road 473, lying in Section 2, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6A6, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 49.12 plus minus acres from Lake County CFD Community Facility District and R6 Urban Residential District to City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development to allow for a residential subdivision for property generally located north of Post Street and south of County Road 473, lying in Section 2, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second. All righty, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the Post Street PUD. Subject property is 49 plus or minus acres, again, off north of Post Street and south of County Road 473. It's an annexation small-scale comp plan and PUD. Under the county, the property is currently urban, low density. They're requesting a city estate, which is equivalent future land use category. Under the zoning, it's currently county R6 urban residential and community facilities district. They're requesting to go to PUD on this one. The petitioner's Bright Leaf Properties, and they're requesting 135 single-family residential units, gives them a gross density of 2.75 units per acre. This is what we've used often. No other uses are permitted. 3 lot sizes, 50s, 60s, and 70s. The majority of them are split half and half into 50s and 60s, and then there's a few 70s with some of the leftover lots. All lots are 120 feet deep, so they have sizes of 6,000, 7,200, and 8,400. The minimum house size is 1,700 square feet. We do have the standard design and architectural standards, dark sky lighting, 35% open space, 25-foot buffer tract along the exterior, split rail solid PVC fence along some of the exterior property lines. And then site access will be 2 points on Poe Road. One of those has to be a boulevard access type, so you have the larger area with the landscape in the middle. Again, protection for wetlands and flood zones, prohibition on St. Augustine. We're using other types of grasses now. All development will have to be on city water and wastewater. There will be 0.62 acres in recreational uses, including a trail around the dry retention flood compensation areas and an amenity center at the head of the trail. Lake County will require the developer to improve Poe Road by widening the road, creating some turn lanes and things. Pretty standard PUD. I did have a couple of issues that I spoke immediately before the meeting. We found a typo under section 7D, landscaping buffers. It says the north, south, and western boundaries of the property shall contain a 25-foot buffer. That instead of western, that should read the north, south, and eastern. So it was just a flip. I need to make that change, please. And then on 7E, we put some language in regarding the buffer to the west. The gentleman, Mr. Randy Bitters, who lives immediately to the west, has been working with Brightleaf Properties, and they have worked out some agreeable buffer changes. Our current wording states an addition of non-invasive clumping bamboo within the required buffer and given some acceptable species. Since they've been working with Mr. Bitters and they've come up with a drawing and everyone has agreed to it and staff is fine with it, it certainly meets our codes. We could either change the wording, or I just wanted to let the commission know there is a standard under O, under section 7, that the planning director can make variations to the landscape requirements when they're in keeping with the PUD. It's kind of a weasel word in case we can run across, and so I'd like to be able to use that section, let you know, just in case. That way we can either change the wording in here or not, but it will still meet with the agreement with Mr. Bitters. I don't know if he's here tonight. Oh, thank you, sir. And with Brightleaf Properties. Beyond that, that's it for staff.
Questions for Dan?
Yeah, I have a couple. Under the present zoning in the county, Dan, how many units would be allowed if it was developed in the county?
Lake County R6 urban residential, if I'm not mistaken, their urban residential allows 6 units an acre.
I mean, obviously they can't get that.
But you can't get that, right. You could get, with their Lake County urban low density, I think that matches up with, they'd get closer to 6 than they would under this zoning. If I understand their future land use, which is urban low density, and their R6, which I don't have that documentation in front of me, but they would get at least what we've got in here, probably more, to be honest.
Is this development going to have city water and sewer?
Yes, sir.
And what was P&Z's?
P&Z recommended approval.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
What you had mentioned the case before that they had on the 90-foot lots, they wanted to make sure they were consistent with the way the rest of the area was developed.
Right.
Is this consistent with the way the rest of the area is developed with 50-foot wide lots?
There are a number of subdivisions out there that have different lot sizes. So I would say from a planning standpoint, it is consistent.
But it's consistent with the way the rest of this
I
area
would
is
say
developed?
yes.
Yeah, I think
Everyone
you basically
has a
have a couple of big trailer parks that are much more dense.
And down the
You
road,
know.
there's some other subdivisions as well that have different lot sizes.
Right.
When you ask a planner about consistency, I'm not going to tell you that 50-foot lots and 50-foot lots. I can't do that because it's single family to single family is how we have to look at things. But I appreciate the question.
Sure.
Any other questions for Dan? Do we have any questions for the petitioner? Anybody want to ask them any questions? Would the petitioner like to?
Do we have any questions? Yeah, I think we're just here to answer any questions.
Okay.
Sean, do you want to? No, I just wanted to.
We'll give you an opportunity to speak if you'd like, is what I'm.
No, I think if Mr. Bitter, I think we've had discussions with him directly and with Dan as well. I think we're in agreement on the revised planting. Yes. I think.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
The only, the thing is, I mean, I really think we should really start taking a look at these 50-foot wide lots. I mean, I think they're too narrow. I mean, I really think we should push them up to more of a 60, 70 standards. I mean, we're letting 50s come through here left and right, and I don't know, I just don't think they're wide enough lots.
Any other comments? Do we have other public comment?
Hey there, Randy Bitter, 10155 Post Street. I'm the landowner of the property to the western boundary. So Commissioner, Connell, to your question about the Lake County zoning. So on my fence line, 10 acres of this 49.12 is actually zone CFD, not R6. So I presume that, would suggest that if they were to go under the county guidelines, that there wouldn't be 6 houses per acres there with that CFD zoning.
What do you know what CFD? How many
Community facility designation used for a big, wide set of choices. It could be a gun club, a hotel, something like that. I don't know all the uses, but it's very wide and broad. And that was one of the reasons that we bought it, our property, because a church owned that property. We anticipated that a church was going to be built there, not having, somewhere between 10 and 15 houses down our fence line. So just sharing a different point of view on how to answer your question.
Question for you, Ms. Root. You're good with, because on record, we're giving Dan some leeway on the landscaping. So with that clumping of bamboo, you're good with that? That's
well, I think we're taking away the bamboo.
We're
going to use some Florida native species now that would serve the same purpose.
But you're in agreement that you just want to make sure we were all clear on that before we did something. Any other public comment? Any other commission comments? All right. Let's do roll call on 6A4.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. 6A5, roll call.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
I have a question on this one real quick. Is on 6A5 grant, we're approving the future land use map, the comprehensive plan?
Yes, sir.
Is that in essence the PUD plan?
The PUD's on the rezoning. So yes, sir, this is the future land use, sort of the broader category within which the different zoning classifications are permitted.
Okay, so what are we changing the future land use map to show for this?
State resolution.
Which is in essence going to allow what the PUD is going to allow for?
Yes, sir. The estate category allows a maximum of 4 units an acre. The PUD allows 2.75. So it stays within the estate category. The future land use is more of the broad category of residential, industrial, commercial, open green space like that. And then the PUD narrows it down to.
Okay. Then I'm a no because I don't approve the density. I think it's too dense. I don't like the 50-foot wide lots.
And Mayor Burry?
Yes. Okay, so we'll move on now to 6A6. Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
No.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Would someone please introduce 6A7?
I'll introduce 6A7 to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, consenting to the inclusion of the City of Leesburg, Florida within the countywide municipal service taxing unit for the provision of ambulance and emergency medical services as adopted by the Board of County Commissioners of Lake County, Florida, providing for the city to be included within said MSTU for a specific term of years, providing for conflicts and providing an effective date.
For approval?
Second.
Discussion. Anybody got any comments? This is, Al, if you just,
This is
just an extension of an existing agreement.
Yep, this is the extension of an annual agreement that signs off on the county's implementation of the municipal service taxing unit for ambulance services, and the rate that they are adopting is 0.4629 mils. That allows for ambulance service and patient transport to facility.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Item 6B is first reading of ordinances. We have none. 6C is non-routine items, and we have the city manager evaluation. Not sure exactly how you guys want to proceed with the
process that was included that I think we established back in May or April to review the city manager performance pursuant to the employment agreement between the city and the city manager. And then we adopted a new form, which was issued to the commissioners. The commissioners, 4 of the 5 of you, Mayor Burry, filled it out. I've received it. There's my self-evaluation as well that I issued to you maybe 2 weeks ago. So barring any comments that you may want to have, I would say that the evaluation would be a satisfactory result. There was the new section of that was some goals. Pending any input, we'll sum up some of those goals and bring back a resolution which will establish goals for me and the organization for next year.
Any other comments regarding that?
Are the goals all reasonable in your mind?
Yeah, I think they're all very good.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
and most of the goals that were provided on there, we've discussed through the budget workshops, or so nothing on there was a surprise.
Okay, thank you.
Let's move on to 6. Let's see, this is 6C. Is that where we are?
Yep.
6C, non-routine items was the city manager evaluation. So now we'll go on to 7, informational reports. We included in the packet were some financial reports. Did anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I would like to see if we could change the way we do with when an event person contracts with the police department. There's a lot of past due balances there. Can we request that they pay those funds ahead of time versus after the fact? So we're not holding on that money. I know we pay the officer already, but then we have to go collect that money, or I think there's a couple people that still owes money. You'd be shocked by the names.
We'll look into that.
I would like to see if we could
I'll
have
get back to
the fee paid ahead of time.
That's a good catch.
And not
And no credit cards. Right?
and no yes. So that way our officers are getting paid, but that way we're not having to go back and collect that money.
Yes, it's a very good idea.
I have a question. How does the one column, I'm sorry, I can't see it, the housing, the rent, just because of, was it a move out or just changes for 013 fund?
I don't know.
Okay.
But let me get with you
old
after.
Brandy might be able to.
Do you know?
Yeah, I'm just saying, so they have to be, they were put out, okay. Okay.
It's collecting, well, yeah, I'll just say that collecting unpaid rent is a difficult thing unless they pay the money into the court registry in connection with.
And are
with
those
the
fees that are charged as well to what is already due?
There would, with lease agreements, there is a provision in the leases that allows recovery of attorney's fees and costs by the prevailing party. Statutes allow it in residential as well. So you would have a claim under statute or contract for those fees. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? All right. Any city attorney items?
No items this evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
City manager items?
No items for you as well.
Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes, I have something tonight, I'm sorry. I'd like to make a recommendation to add a new person on to the Public Recs board because one of the members is relocating. Deborah Dabney will be leaving, and I'd like to recommend Damani Nettles, if I could. He was here earlier, but I don't think, yeah.
That's one commissioner, one person, like
One-
airport,
yeah, that's
right?
her- that-
And that's your
that was her appointee, so that's-
But I thought I would bring it to you all
Good-
first,
good
so
idea,
that
that's
you'd
right.
have to know,
Yeah.
have an idea. And Travis knows. And I also, I have another one thing.
Okay.
District 1 will be providing neighborhood preparedness for hurricanes and just disaster, any type of disaster that might strike. Deputy Chief Henry and Captain Stevenson will be with the Lake County Emergency Office Manager, which will be Megan Milanese, will be providing a presentation on August 29th at a church that's located off of Pamela Street, on 1111 Pamela Street, Door of Hope Ministries. I'm asking if everyone would attend if they would like in the area for District 1. My sponsors were the East Leesburg CDC and the West Leesburg CDC for the expenses.
Good.
So real excited, and it's just awareness so that the constituents will know where to go, what to do, and just provide just information only for what to expect. And I think that would be it. I'll give more information, but it's just, after work from 6 to 8 on August 29th, and just come in and get information only. Just put it through.
Commissioner Connell?
No.
Commissioner Reisman?
Just a couple things. Can I get clarification on the security upgrades downstairs for customer service? Are we putting up the windows for all the customer service ladies?
No, I think the upgrades are pretty much done at City Hall. There's a couple of doors that still don't function properly, so we need to tidy those up. Most of those doors are private individual office doors, and I believe the elevators still aren't working yet. Downstairs, everything is in there. If there's any other additional security measures that y'all think are necessary, just let me know. I believe probably, are you thinking about
So
the agents
I come in and pay
that
all
are
of our
in-
bills for
in
our
the
company.
the back row,
Yeah, so
extending that glass
The
up or
glass.
something?
A couple of times I've been in here, residents have gotten very aggressive with our customer service staff, and they handled it really well. But I asked them, I said, does this happen a lot? And they said it happens all the time. So just to make them feel a little more comfortable, if we could look into adding some kind of protective barrier that they can't, residents can't just get right up there. Plus, we're dealing with a lot of cash and things like that. I think that would be good. And then my other ones would be the Chamber put on the Back to School Bash this last week. It was a really successful event, so I wanted to say thank you to them. It's a great thing that they do for our community. Last two things we have on the 24th, it's in your packet that Andy gave everyone, is the first annual food truck and fly-in at the airport. We're going to pull a couple of our aircraft out. I think the sheriff's bringing his over, the medevac, airplanes. We'll have 5 food trucks so you can crawl around the aircraft, get up in them with your kids. It's open to the public, and then people can fly in as well, and then you can have some food trucks while you're there.
Those packets are done by Pam.
Okay, Pam. So thank you, Pam. And then the last one, that's on the 24th. And the last one, which I'll say it again at another meeting, is the Leesburg Blue Foundation 5K at the airport on September 21st. Hopefully we'll see you all out there. If you're not running, you can walk it. So I know Commissioner Berry came out last year. So hopefully we'll get to see you all there and support our blue. And I think that is it. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Bray?
Yes, I do have one thing. We got a proclamation issued to us from the county, and I just wanted to read this to you guys. It says, whereas Hurricane Debbie impacted Lake County, causing damage and disruption to essential services, and whereas during the critical period, Lake County's 911 dispatch experienced a significant service outage, and whereas the city of Leesburg responded promptly and decisively, providing indispensable public safety support that allowed for the continued coordination of emergency response services during this challenging time. And whereas the dedication, professionalism, and selflessness demonstrated by the City of Leesburg's leadership and staff exemplifies the highest standards of public service and partnership, now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Lake County, Florida, that Section 1, Lake County does hereby extend its deepest gratitude and heartfelt appreciation to the City of Leesburg for their emergency assistance during Hurricane Debbie. Section 2, a copy of this proclamation will be spread upon minutes of this meeting. And Section 3, this proclamation will become effective upon adoption. So way to go, guys. And that's all I got tonight.
Motion to adjourn.